DBS community, welcome back to another video here with Chris, and today we are going to be going over one of the new cooler leaders coming out of set 17, which is going to be Galactic Dynasty. So make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe button, make sure you guys let me know what you guys think of the content as well as the deck and the set down below if you guys want to. So this leader here has been already classified as probably the next good green leader, and it's been quite a few sets since we've actually had a playable green leader. I think there was the Majin Buu leader from a few sets ago, which is okay. It's not amazing, but it is playable. But a lot of people resort back to King Cold as being the last playable competitive green deck, and I would second that notion. I think King Cold, an amazing deck, but the problem with the deck, it's not a green good stuff deck. The majority of the deck comes in that set, and it's leader locked to cooler or to King Cold, and it's you can't really play them, a lot of those cards in other decks sufficiently, right? We kind of have that same thing with this leader, unfortunately, and I think it's good because green is a color, and I don't know why Bandai doesn't do this with other colors, i.e. red and yellow, but they make everything that's good in the green archetype sort of built around that strategy, right? They're built around that particular archetype. They're all archetype cards, right? King Cold, realistically, outside of Dormant and maybe the Frieza counterplay, doesn't really play a lot of other green good stuff cards. It just plays everything from its own archetype. Which this cooler deck will sort of fit in that same role. A lot of the cards that they're going to be playing, instead of field spells now, how it was in King Cold, you're going to be playing a lot of unisons. So, auto on the front side, you add 1 life to hand. When this card attacks, you may draw 1. If you don't, you play up to 1 green unison with a specific cost of 1 from your hand with a marker on it. So essentially, kind of like the Invoker-Ku that's also being released this set, which is more of a meme deck. This actually kind of uses that unison idea and makes it very competitive. So you're taking a life, and then you are playing up to 1 unison. Now you do have to draw before you end up doing that, so if you draw, then you can't play the unison. You can't bait out a unison counterplay or whatever, that kind of stuff. Right now there's not a lot of unison counterplays currently. This is more so for for future reference. Auto, when one of your green unisons is placed in the drop area once per turn, you draw a card. This is on your turn or on your opponent's turn, and it doesn't say how, it just says being placed in the drop area. So this is being either replaced by a unison, killed with his markers being reduced, or warped by Kai. You're still drawing a card. Actually, the Kai you wouldn't draw. Actually, interesting. So yeah, Kai you wouldn't draw because that warps the card, but other forms of removal would put it right in the drop area. Awaken, when your life is at 4 or less, you may draw 1, restand 1 energy, and you flip over. And on this side, when you attack, you may draw a card. If you don't, you have the same effect. You get to play out a unison. Auto, same effect. When a unison is placed in the drop area, you draw a card. Now you have an activate battle. Discard 1 green unison from your hand, choose this card or up to 1 of your green unisons, and it gets 5k for the battle. Essentially turning all of your unisons into 5k combo power. That is incredibly powerful. It's not once per turn, which is interesting. I could see later on, if this deck became very popular and very powerful, this deck could be given the Dark Broly treatment, right? Where Dark Broly, all of the 0k combos, you can combo them off. I guess the difference is that this can only be from hand, right? While the other one could be on board. So maybe that's kind of the balancing, quote unquote, that they did with it. But this still is incredibly powerful effect. Not, even if you're running, 15 unisons in your deck, they still all have combo power. Now going into some of the best archetype cards that are coming out that we kind of feel will work very well with this deck, we have Golden Frieza, Newfound Might. This is your 3-drop 20k unison. This is also your boss monster for the deck. Has in power 4, dual attack, and blocker. It also has a counter attack. Play this card with 3 markers on it. Auto, this card is played with 4 markers or more. When this card is played, choose all your opponent's battle cards and KO them. Essentially what happens is you play this during the counter attack window. You want to replace another unison on board. You play this for 3, and then you, if it comes in with more than 4 markers on it, you just kill everything. So even if they're attacking with something that's very powerful, you can counter attack by playing this and just wiping that card off the board, and as well as every other battle card on the board, not ignoring barrier and indestructible. -4, this card gets 10k power and triple strike for the turn. Switch this card to active mode at the end of the turn. Essentially, you're going to play this card. If you do in power 4 and you play this card for 3, it's coming in with 7 markers on it, and then you're going to be able to -4 and still keep it at 3 markers on your turn and have a having a 30k dual attack triple strike. That's very, very hard to interact with, right? The other very powerful unison is going to be the Salza. think it's Salza, Cooler's Armored Squadron. Empower 2 for one specific cost of green. Counterplay, play this card. If your leader is a green Frieza clan and this card has 3 or more markers on it, when this card is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards, 7 or less, and KO it. Strangely enough, this is a charismatic villain in unison form. And you obviously hint you're going to run charismatic villain in this deck. So you now have 4 copies of this unison, 4 copies of charismatic villain. Obviously, if you do the math, that is 8 copies of charismatic villain essentially you have in this deck that can kill anything 7 or less, not ignoring barrier. This is very powerful. This is a very eerie, I would say annoying effect, right? Like this is something that could really take the meta by storm, is having also the fact that you cannot interact with unisons being played. Currently there's no cards, very few cards that interact with unisons being played, except for ultimate, dragon slaying bullet, right? There's not a lot of other ones that can interact with them. The +1 on this card is just gaining 5k. It goes up to a 15k, but that still is very powerful because it does add a marker to the card. And the last card is going to be Cooler Sibling Cruelty. This is a 4-drop 20k double strike for each unison card in your drop area. Reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1, going down to a total of 1 energy if you have 3 unisons in your drop area. When this card is played, you can't play a copy of this card for the turn. Additionally, you may place 1 green unison with a specific cost of 3 or less from your drop area at the bottom of your deck. If you do, your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. So this is a 1-drop double strike that bottom decks the unison that you lost, as well as removing a card from your opponent's hand. That is very, very good. This deck is very, very good. This, honestly, as I said before in the reveal of this deck has gotten me very close to wanting to buy Dormants again. I'm very close to wanting to play green in some capacity, and this would be the deck that I would play, and probably the only deck that I would play in green, outside of maybe going back to playing King Cold. But this deck is looking incredibly powerful, and now we're going to go into the actual deck list so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Okay, so the list that we have here, this is a 51, wrong button, this is a 51 card list. You guys can check it out. If you guys want to pause it, you guys can check out every single card, you guys can. But we're going to go from the left to the right and go over each card here. So obviously I've already talked about Golden Frieza here. I think this is essentially a 3 of in the deck. I don't think you're going to need 4. Main reason why I say that, I don't think you're really going to need 4 of this card. You can bottom deck it again off of the other, off of the 4-drop Cooler here. So, you can probably, I would think 3 is probably the best for it. Now we have 4 of each of the Niaz and of the Salza here. Niaz we're going to talk about here. This is same idea as this is actually a counterattack. Negate the attack, play this card with a marker on it. If this card is played with 3 or more markers on it, and then when it is played, choose one of your opponent's battle cards and it can't attack until the end of your opponent's next turn. Essentially, kind of like a petrification in a sense, just kind of locking a card out of being able to do anything, right? And then this one has a +2 where it gains 6k for the turn. The 3rd member of the Cooler Squadron, that one is not necessarily very good for this deck, so we're just not going to run it, right? So this now gives us a total of 11 unisons. Now you can run a 4th one of these, that's fine, but we do have another unison we run here, which is the Frieza Galactic Dynasty, which is kind of our replacement for the other unison. So this is a 1-drop 10k, empower 3 while this card has 3 or fewer markers on it. It can't attack, which is fine, because we're going to empower this obviously anyways. Auto, if this card has 3 or more markers on it, when it is played, your opponent discards 1 card from their hand. So essentially when you empower this, your opponent discards a card. Now you have a 4 unison marker here that's a 10k power. +1, this card gets 10k. So now you have a 20k battle card that's popping a card from your opponent's hand. Very, very powerful. So now, if you look at this, we are running 17 unisons total. It's not 17 unisons, I'm sorry, 15 unisons. I miscounted there for a second. So 15 unisons, I think it's pretty good. You can potentially cut this down a little bit if you would like to, maybe to 2 to 3. This will be more so off of playtesting. I just thinking first glance, this is probably a good idea. Quick, you take this down to 3 and then add a 4th one of these coolers here because I'm only running 3 just for space purposes. We then have Cooler, Effortless Strike, and Frieza Charismatic Villain as our other counterplays. This cooler, if you guys don't know, this is when you play this card, the opponent's battle card is being placed 4 or less, it's placed at drop area instead. During your opponent's turn, reduce the energy cost of this card in your hand by 1 for each extra card in your battle area or a drop area. We don't play battle. I don't have any field spells, but we do have a decent amount of extra cards, so we can get this card reduced down to 1 pretty quickly. When this card is played, if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, they choose 1 card and discard it. So not a huge thing, but just gives us an in archetype kind of a in theme counterplay card that we can use to stop our opponent from playing battle cards on their turn. We can't. This is not really good for floodgates on your turn. You still have to pay the 4, which is obviously not good. But this just allows us to stop stuff on their turn. And then we have Frieza, which is going well with our Salza here, which is giving us 8 copies of battle cards or of counterplays essentially that can kill anything 7 or less. Now moving on to some of the extra cards, we have 3 of the Champa Destroys, Run with the Gods. I think this is good. Better than Salza destroying Kamehameha for this deck because we don't run a ton of battle cards. So this being able to give any card, including Unison's 10k, on our turn we kill something on their field higher than their energy cost. On their turn, they choose a card in their hand and discards it, and then one of our card gets an extra 5k. So we can. This is essentially a 1-drop 15k on defense that pops a card in their hand. Or on our turn, it's a 10k boost that kills something on their side of the board, right? And we have Wicked Mimicry. This is a card probably a lot of people have actually seen, and I think this is a very special tech for this deck particularly. So this is a counterattack, Spirit Boost X markers from the Unison being removed to activate the skill, negate the attack. If you removed a marker from your Unison using a skill, play up to 1 Majin token in rest mode. Permanent, if one of your Unisons is attacked, you can activate this card for free. From your hand by choosing 1 card in your hand and discarding it. So you can pitch 1 plus this card to activate this card's effect. And the Spirit Boost effect is because we can play out a lot of Unisons with big markers on them. So essentially, if we play this card for free and then take off 3 markers off our Unison, we are now able to play 3 15k battle card tokens. This is very powerful because then at the end of that turn, let's say you dormant, right? Let's say you dormant first. And then you Wicked Mimicry afterwards, right? You pop off 3 markers. Great. I just played 3 15k battle cards, or essentially 3 5k combo cards because they all have 5k combo power. So now you just played 15k worth of combo power for 2 cards. This is a very powerful card. I think it's something that should be really looked at in this deck, and it hasn't really felt very good in other decks, but in this particular deck, because we play so many Unisons, it's giving us free battle cards essentially is a very, very good thing. Dormant. No need to really go over it. We all kind of know what Dormant does. Still going to run it at the 4 of in this deck. 2 Spirit Bomb Gokus. Again, because we play a lot of Spirit Boost. A lot of our deck is a lot of Spirit Boosting and playing out Unisons. This card becomes very valuable. If you have 3 more energy and a green Unison in play this card. If you do, you choose one of your opponent's markers, Unisons, and remove a marker off of it. That's pretty good. Activate main. Spirit Boost X. This card gets 5k for each marker you remove from it. If you remove 2 or more markers, this card also gets double strike. So we can play this card for 1 energy and take off, I don't know, 5 markers? Giving this card an extra 20k or 25k power, as well as double strike, making this a 40k double strike. It's pretty good, right? So this just gives you a body that you can actually turn into a boss monster very, very quickly. And 2 Fuzimasu's Deity's Wrath. This is because we are playing the Frieza, of course, here. So this is just a card you can have on board, just removing cards from your opponent's hands. Very powerful. For Defending Father Paragus, you also can run the Gohan as well, which bottom decks the card, because we can actually bottom deck some of our Unisons from our hand if we want them in the deck. But I think Paragus is probably the best super combo for the deck, just in green anyway, so you're probably just going to run 4 of those. 3 Homicidal Clones, pretty standard there. 2 Cooler, Mightiest Sibling in Space. When this card is played, search up to top 5, add up to 1 Unison with a specific cost of 3 or less. Essentially, we can search out all of our Unisons. Odd, when one of your green Unisons plays the drop area, add up to 1 card from your life to your hand. This card gets 11k for the turn. So this is just a way of being able to self-awaken yourself. We don't run Demigra Unison. I think the Demigra Unison is sort of a bait. It's a very cool card. I think in main decks, I don't think you're going to run it. I think, the only card you would probably replace it for would be this. And that's cool, right? You can play Demigra. It helps you self-awaken, which is very cool. But our leader also self-awakens herself, right? Like, we're going to attack and draw cards. And I don't know if you really want to rush yourself down and getting awoken. I just don't think that's the correct way of doing this. I think you probably want to get to turn 3 to awaken. And Demigra, you're just taking life, right? Let them swing at your unison if they want to, because when your unison dies, you're going to draw and gain more hand advantage. I don't think Demigra is the play. I think you're going to run these cards here. I think these are just a better suited, because these all have Empower, right? Demigra doesn't have Empower. You're not really going to get the full effect out of Demigra. Sure, you can kill stuff, you know, with ignoring barrier, and it's really hard to remove. Probably side deck it. But in the main deck, it's not a card you're going to want to run. At least, just in my opinion, I don't think it's something you're going to want to main deck. Frieza, we already went over. Pan, I don't know. Pan's probably the best. Mainly, you're playing this as a defensive card, I would feel like, in this deck. You also can play the Majin Buu, which is the counter secret rare. You can also play the Kai Buu secret rare, which is also very good as well. I think Pan's probably just, I think Pan's just the best secret rare in the game if you don't have Kai. Supreme Kai actually demolishes this deck with being able to warp stuff, so it ends up being very good. And then the last two cards here, we have Rebrand. Green, you're going to run it. We do a little bit of hand destruction in this deck, so being able to have rebrands at our disposal is very good. And then one further destruction Champa, just because you want the double strike possibility if you're going in with something else other than Cooler, Goku, or Frieza, right? Like, you're going in with your leader, you want to be able to use this, because you can just pitch all the units from your hand to gain those combo power, and then you have a 10k double strike here. So that is the deck for you guys. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Let me know what you guys think of the list. I'd like to see what your guys' opinions are, and if you guys are going to be adding or taking out stuff, or just running a completely different version of the deck. So let me know down below in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.